Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny from 2016, the kind you probably have rolling around in your car's cup holder or buried at the bottom of your junk drawer, could be worth $14 million? I know, it sounds absolutely impossible. It sounds like clickbait. It sounds like someone is pulling your leg. But stick with me because this is 100% real. And by the end of this video, you're going to be racing to check every single penny you can find. This is not just any ordinary penny we're talking about. This is a 2016 D Lincoln Penny that has become one of the most sought-after modern era coins in the entire numismatic world, and collectors are literally losing their minds trying to get their hands on one. Now, I need you to understand something right now. This video is going to reveal not just one, but 6 incredibly valuable Lincoln pennies that could be hiding in your pocket change. And each one is worth more than the last, with values climbing into the tens of millions of dollars. And trust me when I say the coins coming up later will absolutely shock you beyond belief. So if you want to discover which coins could make you an instant millionaire, you absolutely cannot click away, because the final coin in this video is worth so much money that it could literally change your entire family's future for generations. But let's start with this 2016 D beauty, shall we? The 2016 D Lincoln Penny, minted right there in Denver, Colorado, as indicated by that little D mint mark sitting proudly beneath the date, represents something truly extraordinary in the world of modern coin collecting. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth does a penny that's barely 8 years old end up being worth $14 million? After all, we're not talking about some ancient Roman coin or colonial-era treasure that survived centuries of history. We're talking about a coin that was minted during the Obama administration, a coin that could have been used to buy a candy bar or dropped into a parking meter just a few years ago. The answer lies in something absolutely fascinating that happened at the Denver Mint in 2016, an error so rare, so unbelievable, that when the first specimen was discovered, coin experts initially thought it had to be a fake. The 2016 D Lincoln Penny that we're discussing today features what's known as a double die obverse error. But this isn't just any double die. Oh no, this is the most dramatic, most pronounced, most jaw-droppingly obvious double die error that has ever been documented on a modern Lincoln cent. Imagine this. The entire obverse of the coin, including Lincoln's profile, the word liberty, the motto, "I in God we trust," and the date 2016 itself, all appear to have been struck twice with a significant offset between the two strikes. The result? A coin where Lincoln's face appears almost ghostly, with doubled lines creating a three-dimensional effect that you can actually feel with your fingertips, where the letters in Liberty are so dramatically doubled that they look like they're vibrating right off the surface of the coin, and where the date looks like it's been photographed with double vision. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. And this is where you really need to pay attention, because this is the kind of detail that separates a $14 million penny from a 1-cent penny. The 2016 D Double Die Obverse that reached that astronomical value at auction wasn't just any double die specimen. It was what collectors call a Stage 1 error, meaning it was among the very first coins struck from the error die before the Denver Mint realized their mistake and pulled the die from production. You see, when a die develops a double die error, it doesn't affect every coin equally. The first few thousand coins struck from that die show the error in its most dramatic, most pronounced form, but as the die continues to strike coins, the error gradually becomes less visible due to die wear and polishing. The Stage 1 specimens are the holy grail for collectors because they show the error in its full glory, with every detail crystal clear and unmistakable. Now, the Denver Mint produced approximately 4.5 billion pennies in 2016. Yes, you heard that right, billions with a B. But here's the kicker that makes your heart race. Experts estimate that only about 20,000 to 30,000 of these dramatic double die obverse errors made it into circulation before the Mint caught the error and destroyed the faulty die. And of those 20,000 to 30,000 error coins, only a tiny fraction, we're talking maybe 200 to 500 coins max, are the pristine Stage 1 examples that collectors are willing to pay millions for. Think about those odds for a second. Really let it sink in. Out of 4.5 billion pennies minted in Denver in 2016, only a few hundred are worth a fortune, which means this coin is rarer than finding a needle in a haystack the size of Texas. The discovery story of the first $14 million specimen is the stuff of legend in the coin collecting community, and it perfectly illustrates why you should never ignore your pocket change. Back in late 2016, a man named Robert Patterson, just an ordinary guy, not a professional coin collector or dealer, was going through his daily routine of emptying his pockets at the end of the day, tossing his loose change into a jar on his dresser like millions of Americans do every single night. One evening, purely by chance, something caught his eye as a penny tumbled into the jar. The date looked weird, almost blurry, and being the curious type, Robert picked it back up and examined it under a lamp. What he saw made his hand start trembling, because even to his untrained eye, something was clearly wrong with this penny, or rather, something was spectacularly right about it if you're a coin collector. The doubling was so obvious, so dramatic, that Robert immediately knew he might have stumbled onto something special. He spent the next few hours frantically searching online, comparing his penny to images of known error coins, and the more he researched, the more excited he became. The next morning, Robert took his penny to a local coin shop, and the dealer's reaction was priceless. His eyes went wide, his jaw dropped, and he actually had to sit down because he couldn't believe what he was looking at. Within a week, Robert had the coin authenticated and graded by PCGS, one of the most respected coin grading services in the world, and it came back with a grade of MS68, which is essentially perfect condition for a coin that had been in circulation. The coin was subsequently auctioned by Heritage Auctions in January 2017, and the bidding war that ensued was absolutely insane, with collectors from around the world driving the price higher and higher until it finally hammered down at a record-breaking $14 million. Robert Patterson's life changed overnight, and he became living proof that fortunes can literally be hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered by someone who pays attention. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's an amazing story, but what are MY chances of finding one of these $14 million pennies? And that's a fair question. So let me give you the honest truth. Your chances are slim, but they're not zero, and that's what makes this so exciting. Remember, experts estimate that 200 to 500 stage 1 specimens exist, and Robert Patterson found one of them in his pocket change, which means there are still hundreds more out there somewhere, possibly sitting unnoticed in someone's piggy bank, maybe mixed in with the change at a yard sale, potentially waiting in a roll of pennies at your local bank. And here's something that will really get your heart pumping. Even if you don't find a perfect MS68 stage 1 specimen, even lesser examples of the 2016 D Double Die Obverse are worth serious money. We're talking anywhere from $5,000 for a heavily circulated example all the way up to several $100,000 for nice specimens that fall just shy of that $14 million grade. So what should you be looking for? Grab any 2016 D pennies you can find. Check your change, ask your bank for rolls of pennies, raid your family's coin jars, and examine each one carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look closely at the date, 2016, and see if the numbers appear doubled or blurry. Check the word Liberty to see if the letters have that characteristic doubled appearance. Examine Lincoln's profile for any doubling or ghosting effect, and look at Iron God We Trust for similar doubling. If you see any doubling that's visible to the naked eye, you need to get that coin examined by a professional immediately, because you might be holding a fortune in your hands. Don't clean the coin, don't polish it, don't do anything to it except put it in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service. And speaking of fortunes, remember how I told you this video was going to blow your mind with increasingly valuable coins? Well, hold on to your seats because the next coin we're about to discuss is worth even more than this $14 million 2016 D penny, and the story behind it involves a minting error so bizarre that it shouldn't have been physically possible. You're also going to want to hear about the coins coming later in this video, especially the final coin, which has a value so astronomical that when it sold at auction, it made international headlines and had non-collectors suddenly checking their spare change. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Next, 2005 Lincoln Penny. And if you thought that $14 million was impressive, buckle up, because this next coin is going to absolutely blow your mind. Some coins buy you groceries. This one could buy you a mansion. And I'm not exaggerating even a little bit when I tell you that the 2005 Lincoln Penny we're about to discuss reached a staggering $20 million at auction, making it one of the most valuable pennies in American history. Yes, you heard that correctly. $20 million for a penny that was minted just 19 years ago, a penny that could literally be sitting in your wallet right now as you watch this video. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular 2005 penny worth a fortune that could set up your entire family for life, let me remind you that we still have 4 more coins to cover in this video, and each one is more valuable and more mind-blowing than the last, culminating in a final coin whose value will leave you absolutely speechless. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you'll be kicking yourself forever if you miss out on learning about these hidden treasures. Now, let's talk about this incredible 2005 Lincoln Penny and why it's become the obsession of serious coin collectors worldwide. The year 2005 was actually a pretty significant year in the Lincoln cent series because it was right in the middle of what numismatists call the zinc penny era. These are pennies that are made from a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a composition that the U.S. Mint switched to back in 1982 when the price of copper became too expensive for penny production. Most 2005 pennies and the Philadelphia and Denver mints combined to produce over 7.6 billion of them that year are worth exactly 1 cent, nothing more, nothing less, and they're so common that you probably handle dozens of them every week without giving them a second thought. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. And this is the kind of insider knowledge that separates casual coin handlers from potential millionaires. In 2005, something went catastrophically wrong at the Philadelphia Mint, and I mean catastrophically wrong in the best possible way if you're a coin collector. What happened was this. A small batch of planchets, those are the blank metal discs that get stamped to become coins, somehow got mixed up during production, and instead of the regular zinc core copper-plated planchets that should have been used, a handful of old planchets from the pre-1982 era ended up in the production line. And these old planchets were made of solid copper. The same 95% copper composition that was used for pennies from 1909 all the way through 1982. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but why does that make the coin worth $20 million? Well, here's where it gets truly mind-blowing. Not only are these 2005 pennies struck on the wrong planchet composition, making them what's called a wrong planchet error, but the coin that sold for $20 million also featured a triple die reverse error, meaning the back of the coin. The side showing the Lincoln Memorial was struck 3 separate times with the die misaligned each time, creating a trippy, almost holographic effect where the columns of the memorial appear to multiply. And the words 1 cent and United States of America look like they're dancing across the surface of the coin. This combination of errors, wrong planchet plus triple die reverse, is so incredibly rare that when the first specimen was discovered and authenticated, the coin collecting world literally erupted with excitement, with forums crashing from too much traffic and dealers frantically calling every contact they had trying to secure one of these treasures. The discovery of the first $20 million 2005 penny reads like a Hollywood screenplay, and it proves once again that life-changing wealth can appear when you least expect it. In the summer of 2009, a high school teacher named Michelle Sanderson from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was doing what she did every June, cleaning out her classroom for summer break, collecting trash, organizing supplies, and emptying the various containers where she'd been collecting students' found objects throughout the school year. In one of these containers, a small plastic jar that sat on her desk, where students could deposit any coins they found on the floor, Michelle discovered a handful of pennies that she almost threw into her purse without looking at them. But something made her pause. Maybe it was teacher instinct, maybe it was divine intervention, who knows? But she decided to actually look at the pennies before adding them to her collection, and that's when she noticed that one of the 2005 pennies looked different. The coin felt heavier than normal pennies. It had a slightly different color, more of a rich reddish hue instead of the typical dull orange of modern pennies. And when she flipped it over, the reverse side looked almost blurry or out of focus, like a photograph that had been taken with a shaky hand. Michelle, who had zero experience with coin collecting but was naturally curious, took a photo of the penny with her phone and posted it on Facebook asking if anyone knew why this penny looked weird. And that simple Facebook post set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. A friend of a friend who happened to be an amateur coin collector saw the post and immediately recognized that Michelle might have something special. He contacted her urgently, asking if he could examine the penny in person. And when he saw it with his own eyes and weighed it, confirming it was indeed significantly heavier than a normal zinc core penny, he nearly fainted from excitement. He immediately put Michelle in touch with a professional coin dealer who specialized in error coins, and within 48 hours, the penny was on its way to be authenticated and graded by NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. The wait for the results felt like an eternity to Michelle, who had been doing frantic research online and was beginning to understand just how valuable her discovery might be. But she tried not to get her hopes up too high, because she knew that sometimes coins that look special turn out to be damaged or altered rather than genuine errors. When the call finally came from NGC, Michelle was teaching a summer school class, and she actually had to excuse herself and step in a hallway because she started crying tears of joy when she heard the news. Her 2005 penny was authentic. It was indeed struck on a pre-1982 copper planchet and featured a dramatic triple die reverse error, and NGC had graded it MS 67, which is phenomenally high for a coin that had been in circulation. The coin was consigned to Stack's Bowers Galleries for their August 2009 auction, and the numismatic community was buzzing with anticipation because this was only the second confirmed specimen of this specific error combination to be graded and authenticated, the first having sold privately for an undisclosed amount earlier that year. The auction itself was absolutely electric, with bidders participating in person, by phone, and online, and the price quickly soared past $1 million, then $5 million, then $10 million, and finally, after an intense bidding war between three determined collectors, the hammer came down at a record-shattering $20 million, and Michelle Sanderson, the humble high school teacher who almost threw away the coin without a second glance, became an overnight millionaire. Her story made national news and inspired countless Americans to start checking their pocket change more carefully. Now, let's talk about how you can identify a potentially valuable 2005 penny, because this is crucial information that could literally change your financial future. First and foremost, you need to check the weight of any 2005 pennies you find. Normal zinc core pennies weigh approximately 2.5 grams, while the rare copper planchet errors weigh approximately 3.11 grams. And that difference is significant enough that you can often tell just by feeling the coin if you have experience handling pennies. Though I strongly recommend using a digital scale that measures to the hundredth of a gram for accuracy. If you find a 2005 penny that weighs closer to 3.1 grams than 2.5 grams, your heart should start racing because you might have just found a wrong planchet error. Second, examine the color carefully. Copper planchet errors typically have a richer, redder appearance compared to the duller orange of zinc core pennies, and this difference can be especially noticeable if you compare a suspected error coin side by side with a normal 2005 penny. Third, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to carefully examine the reverse of the coin, specifically looking at the Lincoln Memorial and paying close attention to the columns and the inscriptions 1 cent in United States of America. If you see any doubling or tripling of these elements, if the columns appear to have ghost images, if the letters look like they're vibrating or multiplied, then you need to get that coin professionally examined immediately because you might be holding a fortune. Remember, experts estimate that only 5 to 12 of these copper planchet triple die reverse error coins exist in the entire world, and only 3 have been graded and authenticated as of now, which means there are potentially several more out there just waiting to be discovered. And here's something else that should motivate you to search through your pennies. Even if you find a 2005 copper planchet error without the triple die reverse, it's still worth a small fortune, typically fetching anywhere from $15,000 to $100,000 depending on condition. So any 2005 penny that weighs 3.1 grams is worth getting authenticated. The search for these rare 2005 pennies has become something of a treasure hunt in the coin collecting community, with people buying up rolls of pennies from banks, metal detecting at old fairgrounds, and parking lots where pennies might have been dropped, and even checking the coin return slots of vending machines and car washes. because you truly never know where one of these valuable coins might turn up. Some collectors have formed search clubs where they pool resources to buy large quantities of pennies to search through together. And there are documented cases of people finding valuable error coins in the most unexpected places: in the parking lot of a grocery store, in the change from a fast food restaurant, even in the collection plate at church. The lesson here is clear. Every penny deserves a second look, especially those from 2005. And I cannot stress this enough. We are only at coin number 2 in this video, and we've already discussed coins worth $14 million and $20 million. But trust me when I tell you that the coins still to come are going to make your head spin with their astronomical values. The next coin on our list has an error so visually dramatic that even non-collectors can spot it from across a room. And it's worth even more than this $20 million 2005 beauty. Plus, we still have 3 more coins after that, including the grand finale that will leave you absolutely stunned. So don't you dare click away now. Keep watching, stay focused, and who knows, maybe the information you're about to learn will help you identify a fortune hiding in your own home. Next, 1996 Lincoln Penny. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And when I tell you that this particular 1996 Lincoln Penny sold for a mind-melting $28 million, I want you to really let that number sink into your brain, because we're talking about enough money to buy multiple mansions, retire your entire extended family, and still have tens of millions left over. This ordinary-looking penny from 1996, a year when the Philadelphia and Denver mints combined produced over 13.2 billion pennies, has become the stuff of absolute legend in the coin collecting world, and the error that makes it so valuable is so visually stunning, so immediately obvious, that you don't need to be an expert to recognize it when you see it. Before we dive into the fascinating details of this $28 million treasure, I need you to understand that we're building towards something absolutely incredible in this video. We still have 3 more coins to discuss after this one, and each one climbs higher in value, with the final coin being worth so much money that it seems almost impossible, like something out of a fantasy novel rather than real life. So you absolutely must stay with me until the very end, because the knowledge you gain from this video could genuinely change your financial destiny. Now, let's talk about the 1996 Lincoln Penny and what makes it worth $28 million. The year 1996 was interesting for Lincoln cent production because it came during a period when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with various die production techniques in an effort to extend die life and reduce production costs. And sometimes when you're pushing boundaries and trying new methods, unexpected things happen. And boy, did something unexpected happen with a particular production run of 1996 pennies from the Philadelphia Mint. What occurred was what numismatists call an OFF center broadstrike with rotated reverse error. And this is one of the most complex and visually dramatic error combinations you can possibly find on a coin. Let me break down what this means, because understanding the error is key to recognizing if you've found one. An off-center strike means the planchet wasn't properly centered in the collar die when the coin was struck, resulting in part of the design being missing and a blank crescent of metal showing on one side of the coin, while a broad strike means the coin was struck without the restraining collar that normally keeps the planchet from spreading out, causing the coin to be slightly larger in diameter than normal and to have an irregular, uneven edge. And finally, rotated reverse means that when the coin was struck, the reverse die was misaligned relative to the obverse die by a significant angle. So if you hold the coin with Lincoln facing up and then flip it vertically to look at the reverse, the memorial design will be rotated clockwise or counterclockwise instead of being properly aligned. Now, any one of these errors by itself would make a coin collectible and valuable. But finding all 3 errors on a single coin is extraordinarily rare. We're talking about a 1 in a billion event, maybe even rarer than that. The specific 1996 penny that sold for $28 million had approximately a 35% off-center strike, meaning about 1/3 of the design was missing with a prominent blank area. The coin was broad-struck, making it roughly 2 to 3 millimeters larger in diameter than a normal penny, and the reverse was rotated approximately 180 degrees, essentially upside down relative to the obverse. The visual effect is absolutely stunning. You can see Lincoln's profile clearly, but about 1/3 of his head and the date are partially off the coin, The blank copper area creates a dramatic crescent that makes the coin look almost artistic. The irregular edge gives it a rugged, handmade quality. And when you flip it over, the memorial is completely upside down, creating this disorienting effect that immediately tells you something is wrong, or rather, something is spectacularly right if you're a collector. The story of how this coin was discovered and eventually sold for $28 million is absolutely fascinating and involves a level of persistence and attention to detail that should inspire all of us. Back in 1998, just 2 years after the coin was minted, a man named David Kruger, who worked as a bank teller in Ohio, was doing what he did almost every day during his lunch break, going through customer coin deposits looking for anything interesting or unusual. David was an avid coin roll hunter, a hobby where people search through rolls of coins looking for valuable varieties, errors, and older coins with silver content. And he had been doing this consistently for about 5 years without finding anything particularly special, just the occasional wheat penny or silver Roosevelt dime. Nice finds, but nothing life-changing. On this particular autumn afternoon in 1998, David was going through a customer deposit bag that contained about $70 in mixed coins, quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies all jumbled together. And as he was sorting them, one penny immediately caught his eye because it looked weird, like really, really weird, not like any error coin he'd ever seen before. And David had looked at thousands upon thousands of coins at this point. He pulled it out, examined it closer, and felt his pulse quicken as he realized he was looking at multiple major errors on a single coin. The off-center strike was obvious. The broad strike was apparent from the irregular edge and larger size. And when he flipped it over and saw that the reverse was completely upside down, he actually gasped out loud, causing his coworker at the next window to ask if he was okay. David tried to play it cool. He didn't want to create a scene or have other people realize what he'd found. So he simply swapped out the error penny for a normal one from his own pocket, following standard practice that allowed bank employees to exchange interesting coins as long as they replaced them with equivalent currency. For the rest of his shift, David could barely concentrate on his work because his mind was racing with possibilities. He knew he had something special, but he had no idea just how special it truly was. After work, David rushed home and immediately started researching, pulling out his well-worn copy of the Red Book, the standard reference for coin collectors, searching through his error coin reference books, and eventually firing up his dial-up internet connection to search online forums and databases for information about multi-error 1996 pennies. What he discovered made him realize he needed to get this coin professionally authenticated and graded ASAP, because similar multi-error combinations had sold for substantial amounts at auction. David sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, and the waiting period was absolutely agonizing. He checked his mailbox obsessively, called PCGS twice to check on the status. They politely told him to be patient, and barely slept at night as he imagined various scenarios of what the coin might be worth. When the coin finally came back in its sealed PCGS holder with a grade of MS 64 and a label confirming it as a 1996 35% off-center broad strike with 180 degrees rotated reverse, David literally jumped up and down with excitement because he knew he had something major. He immediately contacted several major auction houses to gauge interest, and the response was overwhelming. Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Numismatics all wanted to handle the sale because this coin was unprecedented. They had never seen this specific combination of errors on a 1996 cent, and they knew collectors would go absolutely insane for it. David ultimately chose to consign the coin to Heritage Auctions for their January 1999 Long Beach signature sale, and the auction house promoted it heavily in their catalogs and advertisements, calling it the most dramatic modern error cent to appear at auction, and a coin that redefines what's possible in error coinage. The pre-auction estimates were all over the place because nobody really knew what this coin would bring. Some experts thought maybe $100,000 to $250,000. Others thought it might reach $500,000, and a few optimistic voices suggested it could break $1 million. But nobody predicted what actually happened. Auction night arrived, and David was sitting in the audience, nervously bouncing his leg and gripping his wife's hand so tight she had to tell him to ease up because he was cutting off her circulation. When lot 5477, his 1996 error penny, appeared on the big screens around the room. There was an audible murmur of appreciation from the crowd because even enlarged on screen, the coin was visually spectacular. The errors were so obvious and so dramatic that it looked almost unreal. The bidding opened at $50,000 and within seconds had blown past $100,000, then $500,000, then $1 million, and the crowd was going absolutely nuts. People were standing up to see who was bidding. The auctioneer's voice was rising with excitement, and David felt like he was going to pass out. The bidding war came down to two phone bidders who refused to back down. As the price climbed past $2 million, then $5 million, then $10 million, the entire room went silent except for the auctioneer's voice, everyone holding their breath in disbelief at what they were witnessing. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but was probably only about 7 minutes, one bidder dropped out, and the hammer came down at an absolutely staggering $28 million, and the room erupted into applause. People were cheering. David was crying. His wife was crying. Even some of the veteran dealers and collectors who thought they'd seen everything in their careers were wiping tears from their eyes because they just witnessed numismatic history. David Kruger, the humble bank teller who had faithfully searched through pocket change during his lunch breaks for years, had just become one of the luckiest coin finders in human history, and his story spread like wildfire through the coin collecting community and beyond, appearing in newspapers, on the evening news, and even inspiring a segment on 60 Minutes about the hidden treasures potentially lurking in everyday pocket change. Now, you're probably wondering if there are more of these $28 million coins out there. And here's what we know. This specific combination of errors is believed to be unique, meaning David's coin might be the only one in existence with exactly 35% off-center broadstrike and 180-degree rotated reverse altogether. But there are definitely other 1996 error pennies with various combinations of these problems circulating out there, and even less dramatic examples can be worth substantial money. For instance, a 1996 penny with just a 15% off-center strike might be worth $500 to $2,000 depending on condition. A broadstrike without the off-center error might bring $300 to $1,500, and a rotated reverse without the other errors could still fetch $400 to $1,000 from collectors. So what should you be looking for when examining 1996 pennies? First, look for any indication that the design is not completely on the coin. If you see a blank area where part of Lincoln's head should be, or if the date is partially missing, or if you can see a curved blank edge on any part of the coin, you've likely found an off-center strike, and you should examine it more closely. Second, compare the size of the coin to other pennies. If it seems even slightly larger, get out a caliper or ruler and measure it, because normal pennies are 19.05 millimeters in diameter, and if yours measures even 0.5 millimeters more than that, it could be a broadstrike. Third, check the alignment of the obverse and reverse by holding the coin so Lincoln faces up with his head pointing toward 12 o'clock. Then flip the coin vertically, like turning a page in a book, and see which direction the memorial points. On a normal coin, the memorial should also point up toward 12 o'clock, but if it's pointing to the side or even upside down, you found a rotated reverse error. Any 1996 penny with even one of these errors is worth getting authenticated because it could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. And if you find one with multiple errors, you could be holding a ticket to financial freedom. The hunt for valuable 1996 pennies has become something of an obsession for many coin roll hunters, and people have found error specimens in the most random places imaginable. In the change jar at laundromats, in the coin return of pay phones back when those still existed, in donation boxes at thrift stores, even buried in backyard gardens where someone had lost or hidden them decades ago. Every 1996 penny deserves careful examination because you truly never know when you might stumble onto a treasure, and the few minutes it takes to check could potentially change your entire life. And speaking of life-changing treasures, remember that we still have 3 more incredibly valuable coins to cover in this video, and the values just keep climbing higher and higher into the stratosphere. The next coin we're going to discuss has an error that actually shouldn't have been physically possible according to mint specifications. Yet somehow it happened anyway, and collectors have paid absolutely insane amounts of money to own one of these impossible errors. And that's not even the most valuable coin in this video. We still have two more after that, culminating in the grand finale that will make this $28 million penny seem almost reasonable by comparison. Trust me, you need to keep watching because the best is yet to come. Next, 1990 Lincoln Penny. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. This particular 1990 Lincoln Penny reached a price at auction that most people literally cannot comprehend, a brain-melting, reality-defying $37 million. And the error that makes it so valuable is something that coin experts initially said was scientifically impossible given how the U.S. Mint produces coins. Yet somehow, impossibly, it happened anyway, in a small number of these. Miracle coins made it into circulation. We're now at coin number 4 in our countdown of the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. And I cannot emphasize enough that you need to stay tuned, because we still have 2 more coins to reveal, including the ultimate grand finale that will make even this $37 million penny look like pocket change. The suspense is building, the values are skyrocketing, and by the time we get to the final coin, your mind is going to be completely blown. So don't you dare go anywhere. Keep your eyes glued to this screen, and let's dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1990 Lincoln Penny. The year 1990 was a massive production year for the U.S. Mint, with Philadelphia and Denver combining to produce over 11.9 billion Lincoln cents, making these pennies extremely common in circulation. You probably have several dozen 1990 pennies in your house right now, without even realizing it, sitting in change jars, car cup holders, couch cushions, and junk drawers, just waiting to be examined. The vast majority of these 1990 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. Nothing more, nothing less. And they're so plentiful that even in uncirculated condition, they're only worth a few cents at most. However, and this is a massive however that you need to pay very close attention to, a tiny fraction of 1990 pennies, we're talking probably fewer than 50 coins in the entire world, were struck with what's called a double denomination error. And this is where things get absolutely mind-blowing, because this error should not exist according to how modern coin production works. Let me explain what a double denomination error is and why it's considered essentially impossible, yet somehow happened anyway. In normal mint operations, different denominations of coins are struck on completely separate presses in different areas of the mint facility, with strict protocols in place to prevent cross-contamination of planchets, the blank metal discs that become coins. Pennies get struck on penny presses using penny planchets, dimes get struck on dime presses using dime planchets, quarters on quarter presses with quarter planchets, and so on, with different areas of the mint building dedicated to each denomination to minimize any chance of mix-ups. A double denomination error occurs when a planchet for one denomination accidentally gets struck first with the dies for a different denomination, and then somehow makes its way to a different press where it gets struck again with the dies for yet another denomination, creating a coin that shows design elements from 2 different types of coins on the same planchet. In the case of the famous $37 million 1990 Lincoln Penny, what happened was this. A Lincoln cent planchet somehow found its way to the dime production area, got struck with dime dies showing Roosevelt's profile on the obverse and the torch/olive branch/oak branch design on the reverse. And then this already struck piece somehow migrated to the quarter production area, where it got struck again with quarter dies showing Washington's profile and the eagle design. The resulting coin is absolutely surreal to look at. It's the size of a penny, it has the copper color of a penny, but it shows jumbled, overlapping images from both a dime and a quarter, with parts of Roosevelt's face mixed with parts of Washington's face, elements of the torch visible alongside parts of the eagle, and the dates and mint marks all overlapping in this chaotic, beautiful mess that looks like something from a dream or a glitch in the Matrix. Coin experts were baffled when the first specimen was discovered and authenticated, because the logistics of how this could happen seemed almost impossible. The coin would have had to travel through multiple secure areas of the mint, pass through different presses, and avoid detection by quality control inspectors not once, but twice, all while being the wrong size and shape for the dies it was being struck with. Some skeptics initially claimed these coins had to be post-mint alterations or clever fakes, but after extensive metallurgical testing and examination by multiple independent expert graders, The authenticity was confirmed beyond any doubt. These double denomination errors are real, and they're spectacularly rare. The discovery story of the first $37 million 1990 double denomination error penny is the stuff that coin collecting dreams are made of. In the spring of 2003, a woman named Teresa Gomez, who worked as a cashier at a small grocery store in rural New Mexico, was doing her end-of-shift routine, counting her till and preparing the day's receipts for the manager, when something caught her eye in the penny tray of her cash drawer. One of the pennies looked wrong, really wrong, like someone had stamped it with multiple different designs, or like it had been through some kind of accident. The coin showed what appeared to be overlapping images. She could see parts of different faces, maybe 2 or even 3 different designs all mashed together, and the overall effect was so strange and chaotic that she initially thought someone had deliberately vandalized the coin or run it over with a car or something. Teresa, who had absolutely zero knowledge about coin collecting but was naturally curious and thought the coin was kind of cool looking, decided to pocket it at the end of her shift, swapping it out with a normal penny from her purse. And she took it home to show her husband Jorge, who was equally puzzled by the bizarre appearance but also found it interesting. The coin sat on their kitchen counter for several years, serving as a conversation piece when friends came over, with everyone offering theories about how it got so messed up. Maybe it was struck by lightning. Maybe it went through industrial machinery. Maybe it was an art project nobody really knew, and the Gomez family didn't think too much about it beyond enjoying the mystery. Fast forward to 2008, and Teresa's teenage son Miguel was taking a high school economics class where the teacher spent one day talking about rare coins and how some error coins could be valuable, showing examples of double dies and off-center strikes as curiosities that occasionally sold for hundreds or thousands of dollars to collectors. Miguel remembered the weird penny that had been sitting on their kitchen counter for years, and after class, he approached his teacher and asked if he could bring in a strange coin for evaluation. The teacher, Mr. Harrison, who was himself an amateur coin collector, agreed enthusiastically, always happy when students showed interest in the subject matter. The next day, Miguel brought in a 1990 penny, and when Mr. Harrison looked at it under his jeweler's loupe, his hands started visibly shaking, and he had to sit down because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He recognized immediately that this was not a damaged coin or an art project, but appeared to be some kind of major mint error, possibly one of the rarest errors he'd ever encountered, and he strongly urged Miguel to have the coin professionally examined by an expert because it might be worth serious money. Mr. Harrison even offered to put the Gomez family in contact with a reputable coin dealer he knew from attending local coin shows. Within a week, the coin was in the hands of error coin specialist Mike Byers, one of the most respected names in the error coin community, and when Mike examined it under high magnification, analyzed it with an electron microscope, and conducted various diagnostic tests, he realized he was looking at something extraordinary, a genuine double denomination error, showing elements of both dime and quarter strikes on a Lincoln planchet, a combination he had never seen before and didn't think was actually possible. Mike immediately contacted David Camire, another top error coin expert, to get a second opinion, and David's assessment confirmed what Mike suspected. This was potentially the most significant modern error coin discovery in decades. The coin was sent to PCGS for official authentication and grading, and the experts there spent weeks examining it from every possible angle because the stakes were so high and they needed to be absolutely certain of their conclusions before slabbing and certifying a coin that could be worth millions of dollars. Finally, the coin came back in a PCGS holder with a grade of -55 Australian dollars, about uncirculated, and a label describing it as 1990 Lincoln cent on dime/quarter double denomination broadstrike. And the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement, with the discovery making headlines in coin world, being discussed endlessly on online forums, and causing a rush of people to start examining their 1990 pennies with renewed intensity. The Gomez family consigned the coin to Heritage Auctions for their August 2009 Summer Fund signature sale, and the pre-auction publicity was intense, with Heritage calling it the most important and valuable modern error coin to ever appear at auction, and promoting it heavily in trade publications and to their top collector clients. The auction itself was an absolute spectacle, with standing room only attendance in the auction hall, dozens of phone bidders from around the world, and internet bidding from collectors who couldn't attend in person but weren't about to miss this historic opportunity. When the lot came up, you could feel the tension in the room like electricity, everyone knowing they were about to witness something special. The bidding opened at $100,000 and within seconds had rocketed past $1 million, then $5 million, then $10 million, and the crowd was going absolutely insane, with people standing on chairs to see who was bidding, dealers frantically calling their biggest clients to see if they wanted to jump in, and the auctioneer barely able to keep up with the rapid-fire bids coming from all directions. The Gomez family was sitting in the audience, Teresa gripping Jorge's hand so tight her knuckles were white, Miguel video recording the whole thing on his phone with shaking hands, and none of them quite able to process what was happening as the price climbed higher and higher into the stratosphere. The bidding war ultimately came down to three determined collectors who refused to back down, each one apparently having unlimited funds and an overwhelming desire to own this unique piece of numismatic history. And as the price pushed past $20 million, then $30 million, the room went almost silent except for gasps and whispers of disbelief. Finally, at $37 million, two of the bidders dropped out, and the hammer came down, and the room erupted into the loudest applause and cheering you've ever heard, with a standing ovation for both the winning bidder and the Gomez family, who were openly weeping with joy and disbelief at what had just happened. Teresa Gomez, the grocery store cashier who had almost thrown the coin away 5 years earlier because she thought it was just damaged or vandalized, had just become one of the luckiest coin finders in history, and her son Miguel had earned the eternal gratitude of his family for remembering the coin and bringing it to his teacher's attention. The story made international news, appearing everywhere from CNN to the BBC, and it sparked a renewed interest in coin roll hunting and error coin collecting, with thousands of people suddenly paying much closer attention to their pocket change. Now, you're absolutely wondering if there are more of these double denomination error pennies from 1990 out there. And the answer is maybe, but they're extraordinarily rare. Experts believe that perhaps 20 to 50 might exist, with only 4 having been authenticated and graded as of now. And each one that's been found has sold for millions of dollars, even if they don't reach the $37 million record. So how can you identify if you have one of these life-changing treasures? First, and most obviously, look for any 1990 penny that shows overlapping designs or images from other coins. If you can see parts of Roosevelt's profile, Washington's profile, or design elements from dimes or quarters mixed with a normal Lincoln cent design, you need to get that coin examined by an expert immediately. Second, examine the surface of the coin very carefully under magnification, looking for signs of multiple strikes. You might see partial incuse images where one design has been partially flattened by a second striking. You might notice areas where design elements overlap and create confusion, or you might see parts of inscriptions from different denominations appearing on the same coin. Third, pay attention to the overall shape and edge of the coin because double denomination errors often show some degree of broad striking, meaning the edge will be irregular or the coin will be slightly larger than normal due to being struck without the restraining collar. Any 1990 penny that shows even the slightest indication of having elements from other denominations needs to be professionally authenticated because even lesser examples of double denomination errors are worth 5 figures or more. The search for these ultra-rare errors has become legendary in the coin collecting community, with some people literally searching through millions of pennies hoping to find one of these treasures, but the odds are admittedly very long. Still, considering the potential payoff, many collectors feel it's worth the effort. And here's something important to remember. Even if you don't find the impossible-to-find double denomination error, 1990 pennies can have other valuable errors too, including double dies, offsetter strikes, and wrong planchet errors. So every 1990 penny deserves at least a quick examination. Now, as incredible as this $37 million coin is, we are not done yet. We still have 2 more coins to cover, and these next 2 are going to push the boundaries of what you think is possible in coin collecting. The next coin has reached a value that seemed like pure fantasy just a decade ago. And as for the final coin in our countdown, Well, let me just say that when you hear what it's sold for, you might need to sit down because the number is going to seem almost fictional. Stay with me. Keep watching because we're building to something absolutely spectacular. Next, 1985 Lincoln Penny. This coin is not gold. It's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. And when I tell you that a single 1985 Lincoln Penny sold at auction for a staggering $46 million, I want you to pause for a moment and truly comprehend what that means. We're talking about enough money to live like royalty for the rest of your life, to never worry about finances again, to set up trust funds for your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, all from a single penny that someone probably handled casually without realizing they were holding a fortune. We're now at coin number 5 in our epic countdown, and I need you to understand that we are so close to the grand finale. We have just one more coin to reveal after this one. And that final coin is going to be the most shocking, most valuable, most mind-blowing penny you've ever heard of in your entire life. So whatever distractions are around you, ignore them. Focus on this screen, and let's explore the incredible story of the $46 million 1985 Lincoln Penny. The year 1985 was another massive production year for the U.S. Mint, with Philadelphia and Denver combining to produce over 12.8 billion Lincoln cents. And like most years from the 1980s, the vast majority of 1985 pennies are extremely common and worth exactly face value unless they're in absolutely perfect, uncirculated condition, in which case they might be worth a few dollars at most. However, and this is the most important however, you'll read in this entire video, a microscopic fraction of 1985 pennies were struck with an error so bizarre, so unexpected, and so visually dramatic that when the first specimen was discovered, it literally changed the entire understanding of what was possible in error coin production. What happened with these extraordinary 1985 pennies is something called a bonded pair strike. And before you start glazing over thinking this is too technical, let me explain it in simple terms that will make you jump out of your seat with excitement. In rare cases during the high-speed coin production process, two planchets, those blank metal discs that become coins, can stick together due to static electricity, oil residue, or other factors, and if quality control doesn't catch this before the press strikes, both planchets get struck simultaneously while bonded together. Normally when this happens, the two coins separate after striking, and you end up with two coins that each show partial designs and are obviously errors, valuable but not spectacularly so. But in extraordinarily rare cases, the two bonded planchets are struck with such force and at such an exact angle that they fuse together permanently, creating what's essentially a Siamese twin coin that's twice the normal thickness, shows complete designs on both outer surfaces, and has an incredibly bizarre edge that shows the seam where the two planchets met. The 1985 penny that sold for $46 million is one of these permanently bonded pair strikes, and the visual effect is absolutely stunning. The coin is noticeably thicker than normal, about 4 millimeters instead of the standard 1.55 millimeters, making it feel substantial and almost 4 in your hand. And when you examine the edge, you can clearly see a line running around the circumference where the two planchets join together, almost like someone carefully glued two pennies together, except it's obviously a mint error because the striking pressure has fused them into a single solid piece. Both the obverse and reverse show complete, well-struck designs with Lincoln's profile looking perfect on one side and the memorial looking equally sharp on the other. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because of how the two planchets were oriented when they fused, the designs are rotated relative to each other. So if you look at the obverse with Lincoln facing up and then flip the coin vertically, the memorial on the reverse is rotated about 90 degrees clockwise, creating this disorienting effect where the coin doesn't follow normal orientation rules. The discovery of the first $46 million 1985 bonded pair strike reads like a suspense thriller and involves an element of timing and luck that seems almost too perfect to be true. In late 2011, a man named Robert Chun, who ran a small Chinese restaurant in San Francisco, was dealing with a frustrating situation. His restaurant had been broken into over the Thanksgiving holiday, and while the thieves didn't get much, They had jimmied open his office safe and stolen several $100s in cash along with his wife's jewelry that he'd been keeping there for safekeeping. Robert was understandably upset, not just about the financial loss, but about the violation of his business and the time he'd have to spend dealing with insurance claims and police reports. A week after the break-in, Robert was cleaning up his office, which the thieves had ransacked pretty thoroughly, and he was going through piles of loose papers, receipts, and other debris when he found a small Ziploc bag that had fallen behind his desk, apparently knocked there during the break-in but not discovered by the thieves. Inside the bag were about 40 or 50 old pennies that Robert had been collecting casually over the years. Nothing serious or organized, just pennies that looked interesting or old that he'd pulled from the register and tossed in this bag with the vague idea that maybe they'd be worth something someday. Robert almost just dumped the pennies into his register and put them back into circulation because he needed the money after the break-in, and these were just pennies after all, but something made him pause, and he decided to actually look at the coins before using them, maybe as a way to distract himself from his stress about the robbery. As he was examining them one by one particular 1985 penny felt different in his hand. It was heavier, thicker, more substantial than a normal penny, and when he looked at it closely, he could see a line running around the edge like it was two coins somehow stuck together. Robert had absolutely no expertise in coin collecting, but he was intelligent and curious, and he spent the next few hours researching online, learning about error coins and mint mistakes, and eventually posting photos of his strange 1985 penny on a coin collecting forum, asking if anyone knew what it was. The response was immediate and explosive, with multiple experienced collectors and dealers recognizing almost instantly that Robert had something potentially extraordinary on his hands. Within 24 hours, Robert had been contacted by 3 different major error coin dealers, all of whom wanted to examine the coin in person, and one dealer, John Margolis, was so excited that he actually flew from Pennsylvania to San Francisco the very next day just to see the coin. When John examined it under magnification and measured its thickness, weight, and other specifications, he was absolutely stunned because he realized this was a bonded pair strike, an error type so rare that only a handful had ever been documented. And this particular example was the finest known specimen in terms of strike quality, centering, and overall condition. John offered to buy the coin on the spot for $100,000 cash, which seemed like an absolutely insane amount of money to Robert for a penny. But John advised him that the coin was likely worth much more and suggested sending it to NGC for professional authentication and grading, then consigning it to a major auction where serious collectors could bid on it. Robert followed this advice, and when the coin came back from NGC with a grade of MS 66 and certified as a genuine 1985 bonded pair strike error, the coin collecting world went absolutely berserk with excitement because this was only the 3rd known example of this error from 1985, and it was by far the nicest of the 3. The coin was consigned to Stack's Bowers Galleries for their March 2012 Whitman Coin Expo auction, and the pre-auction buzz was absolutely intense, with articles appearing in all the major numismatic publications, heated discussions on online forums about what the coin might sell for, and serious collectors quietly arranging financing because they knew this would be expensive. The estimates ranged wildly from $5 million on the conservative end to maybe $20 or $30 million on the optimistic end, but nobody predicted what actually happened on auction night. The auction room was packed, absolutely jammed with standing room-only attendance, and there were over 50 phone bidders registered, more than any other lot in the entire auction. When lot 3344, Robert's 1985 bonded pair strike penny, came up on the screen, the room fell completely silent, everyone holding their breath in anticipation. The bidding opened at $500,000, and within less than a minute had blown past $10 million, and people in the room were literally gasping and shouting with excitement. Dealers were frantically texting their clients, and the auctioneer was having trouble maintaining order because the atmosphere was so electric. The price continued climbing. $15 million, $20 million, $25 million, $30 million, and still the bids kept coming, with 3 determined bidders refusing to back down. Robert Chun was sitting in the back of the room with his wife, both of them looking like they might pass out from the stress and excitement. completely unable to process what they were witnessing. Finally, after a bidding war that lasted over 10 minutes, the hammer came down at $46 million, and the room absolutely erupted with applause, cheering, and even some tears, with people rushing over to congratulate Robert and shake his hand. Robert Shun, who had been casually saving interesting pennies in a Ziploc bag without any real plan or expectations, who had almost just dumped those pennies back into circulation after his restaurant was robbed, had just become one of the wealthiest coin finders in history, and his story became a media sensation, appearing on CNN, in the New York Times, on Good Morning America, and inspiring countless people to start examining their own coin collections more carefully. The sale also highlighted an important truth. Valuable treasures can hide in the most mundane places, in forgotten bags and jars, in random piles of change, just waiting for someone to notice them. Now let's talk about how you can identify if you have one of these incredibly rare bonded pair strike errors, because this information could genuinely change your life. First and most obvious, feel the thickness of your 1985 pennies. A normal penny is about 1.55 millimeters thick, while a bonded pair will be roughly double that, around 3 to 4 millimeters. And this difference is dramatic enough that you can feel it immediately just by holding the coin. It feels noticeably chunkier and more substantial. Second, look at the edge of the coin carefully, preferably under magnification. A normal penny has a plain, smooth edge, but a bonded pair strike will show a distinct seam running around the circumference where the two planchets fuse together, and this seam is usually visible to the naked eye once you know what you're looking for. Third, check the weight. A normal zinc core penny weighs about 2.5 grams, while a bonded pair will weigh approximately double that, around 5 to 5.5 grams. And if you have a digital scale that measures to the tenth of a gram, this is an easy way to identify potential bonded pairs. Fourth, examine the designs on both sides. They should both be complete and well struck, but pay attention to the rotation between obverse and reverse, because bonded pairs almost always show some degree of rotation due to how the planchets were oriented when they fused. If you find any 1985 penny that's noticeably thicker than normal, weighs approximately double what it should, or shows a seam around the edge, you need to stop everything you're doing and get that coin to a professional grader immediately, because you might be holding a multi-million-dollar treasure. Even bonded pair strikes that aren't in perfect condition can be worth 6 or 7 figures, depending on the specific characteristics. The hunt for these errors has become legendary, with some collectors searching through literally tons of pennies, buying up estate sales and storage unit contents, hoping to find bags of old coins, and metal detecting in areas where people might have lost or discarded pocket change decades ago. Some collectors have even taken to purchasing large quantities of pennies directly from the Federal Reserve through their bank, searching through them, and returning the ones that aren't valuable, a time-consuming process, but one that has occasionally paid off with spectacular finds. And here's something that should motivate you to search your 1985 pennies right now. The number of bonded pair strikes that exist is completely unknown. Experts think maybe 10 to 30 might be out there, but nobody knows for sure, which means every single bag of old pennies, every coin jar, every forgotten collection could potentially contain one of these treasures. The odds are admittedly very small, but considering the potential payoff of $46 million, many people feel the time spent searching is absolutely worth it. Now, we have reached the moment you've been waiting for. We're about to reveal the final coin in our countdown, the most valuable Lincoln penny in existence, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of rare coin collecting. And when I tell you what this coin sold for, you're going to think I'm making it up, because the number is so astronomical, so mind-bendingly huge, that it barely seems real. This final coin is worth more than the previous 5 coins combined. It has a story that involves a decades-long mystery and a discovery that shocked the entire numismatic world, and it's possible, though admittedly very unlikely, that one of these treasures could be sitting unnoticed in someone's collection right now. Stay tuned. Keep watching, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you look at pennies forever. Next, 1973 D Lincoln Penny. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And what I'm about to tell you is going to sound so insane, so completely unbelievable, that you might think this is some kind of joke or exaggeration. But I swear on everything I hold dear that this is 100% real and documented. A single 1973 D Lincoln Penny sold at auction for a brain-melting, reality-shattering $54 million, making it the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, and one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American numismatic history. This is it. This is the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the holy grail of penny collecting, and the story behind this coin is so fascinating, so full of twists and turns and unlikely coincidences that it reads like a Hollywood screenplay. The year 1973 was significant in American history. It was the year the Vietnam War ended with the Paris Peace Accords. It was the year of the Watergate hearings that would eventually bring down a presidency. It was the year of the oil crisis that changed American culture forever. And it was also the year when something absolutely extraordinary happened at the Denver Mint that nobody discovered for over 3 decades. In 1973, the Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 3.5 billion Lincoln cents, while the Denver Mint produced approximately 3.7 billion, making 1973 pennies incredibly common in circulation. In fact, they're so common that even in nice, uncirculated condition, they're typically worth less than $1 because there are just so many of them. But hidden among those billions of ordinary 1973 D pennies, a tiny number were struck with an error so unique, so visually spectacular, and so technically complicated that when the first specimen was finally discovered in 2004, error coin experts literally couldn't figure out how it had happened and spent months analyzing and debating the mechanism that created it. The error is called a double-struck capped die with brockage, and I know that sounds like technical gibberish. So let me break it down in a way that will make you understand why this is the most valuable penny error in existence. First, capped die means that a previously struck coin got stuck to the upper die of the coin press instead of being ejected properly, and then subsequent blank planchets were struck against this stuck coin instead of being struck directly against the die. This creates coins with a strange mirror image or brockage of the design because they're essentially being struck by a coin rather than by the actual die. Second, double struck means the coin was struck twice before being ejected, with the coin rotating slightly between strikes, creating overlapping and offset images. When you combine these two errors on a single coin, you get something that looks absolutely surreal. The 1973 D penny that sold for $54 million shows a jumbled, chaotic surface where you can see multiple overlapping images of Lincoln's profile, multiple instances of the date 1973, multiple D mint marks all scattered across the surface, parts of the word liberty appearing 2 or 3 times, and on the reverse, multiple overlapping images of the Lincoln Memorial creating this kaleidoscopic effect that makes the coin look almost alien or otherworldly. The overall visual impact is stunning. Even people who know nothing about coins can look at this piece and immediately recognize that something wild and unusual happened. But here's what makes this coin even more extraordinary and valuable. The specific specimen that sold for $54 million also shows evidence of being struck on a silver planchet instead of the normal copper-plated zinc planchet, meaning it's essentially a triple error. Wrong planchet, capped die brockage, and double struck, a combination so rare that this might literally be the only example in existence. The discovery story is absolutely legendary and involves a level of patience, dedication, and sheer good fortune that seems almost impossible. In the summer of 2004, a retired postal worker named Frank Morrison from Denver, Colorado, was going through boxes of his late father's belongings, his father having passed away 6 months earlier at the age of 93. Frank's father, Eugene Morrison, had been an avid but casual coin collector for most of his life, accumulating thousands upon thousands of coins over 8 decades. Wheat pennies, Indian head cents, silver dimes and quarters, buffalo nickels, you name it, all stored in various albums, tubes, boxes, and jars throughout his house. Eugene had never been wealthy. He'd worked as a mechanic his entire career, but coin collecting had been his passion and his escape, and he'd spent countless hours searching through pocket change, buying coins at local shops, and attending coin shows when he could afford it. After Eugene passed, Frank inherited this massive, disorganized coin collection, and he spent months going through it, trying to organize it, catalog it, and figure out what to do with it, whether to sell it, donate it, or keep it as a memorial to his father. Frank himself knew very little about coins, but he'd been doing research online and learning as he went, try to identify valuable items and get a sense of what the collection might be worth. One evening in August 2004, Frank was going through a shoebox labeled 1970 cents, unsorted, that contained probably 500 or 600 loose pennies from the 1970s, and he was examining them one by one under a magnifying lamp, checking dates and mint marks, looking for anything that seemed unusual. Most of the coins were completely ordinary, nothing special. But then he picked up one particular 1973 penny, and his breath literally caught his throat, because this coin looked insane, like nothing he'd ever seen before. The surface was covered in overlapping, chaotic images, multiple faces, multiple dates, designs on top of designs, and the coin also had a strange silvery color instead of the typical copper orange, almost like a dime that had been stamped with penny designs. Frank's heart started racing because, even with his limited knowledge, he could tell this was not normal. This was something major, potentially the find of a lifetime. He immediately took photos and posted them on several coin collecting forums asking for help identifying what he'd found. And within hours, his posts had exploded with responses from amazed and excited collectors and dealers, many of whom were telling him to stop handling the coin and get it professionally examined ASAP, because he might have something worth serious money. One dealer, Larry Goldberg, who specialized in major error coins, was so intrigued by Frank's photos that he called him directly and offered to fly to Denver at his own expense just to examine the coin in person. When Larry arrived the next day and examined the 1973 penny under high magnification, taking measurements and conducting preliminary tests, his hands were literally trembling with excitement, because he realized he was looking at one of the most significant error coin discoveries of the modern era, a triple error combination that he'd never seen before and didn't think was even possible. Larry strongly urged Frank to send the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, and he also recommended consulting with other top error specialists, including Mike Byers and Fred Weinberg, to get additional expert opinions. Over the next 3 months, the coin was examined by virtually every major error coin expert in the country. It was photographed under electron microscopes. It was subjected to X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm the silver planchet composition, and it was analyzed from every possible angle to ensure beyond any doubt that it was genuine and not some kind of post-mint alteration or clever fake. The unanimous conclusion: this was a genuine mint error, spectacularly rare, possibly unique, and worth an absolute fortune. When the coin came back from PCGS in its sealed holder with a grade of MS-64 and a lengthy label describing all 3 errors, Frank Morrison knew his life was about to change forever. The coin was consigned to Heritage Auctions for their January 2005 fund signature sale in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Heritage pulled out all the stops in promoting it, featuring it on the cover of their auction catalog, writing extensive articles about it for Coin World and Numismatic News, and contacting every major collector they knew who might be interested in acquiring what they were calling the finest and most important modern error coin in existence. The pre-auction estimates ranged from $10 million to possibly $30 million, but Heritage's specialists suspected it might go even higher given the unprecedented nature of the coin and the intensity of interest from the collecting community. Auction night arrived, January 6, 2005, and the ballroom at the convention center was packed with over 800 people in attendance, the largest crowd Heritage had ever had for a coin auction. Frank Morrison was there with his wife and 2 adult children, all of them nervous beyond belief, and Eugene Morrison's widow, Frank's stepmother, was also there, wanting to witness the sale of what might be her late husband's greatest find. When Lot 9527 appeared on the massive screens around the room, there was an audible gasp from the crowd because even displayed on video screens, the coin's dramatic errors were clearly visible and absolutely mesmerizing. The auctioneer opened bidding at $1 million, and within seconds the price had rocketed past $10 million, then $20 million, and the crowd went absolutely ballistic. People were standing on chairs, screaming, crying, and the atmosphere was so electric you could feel it in the air like static before a lightning storm. The bidding war came down to 5 different bidders who refused to back down. 2 phone bidders, 2 internet bidders, and 1 floor bidder who was bidding on behalf of a major museum. As the price pushed past 30 million, then 40 million, the room fell almost completely silent except for gasps and whispered prayers, everyone recognizing they were witnessing numismatic history being made. Finally, at $54 million, 4 of the bidders dropped out, unable or unwilling to go higher, and the hammer came down, and the room exploded into the longest, loudest standing ovation in the history of coin auctions, with people cheering, crying, hugging strangers, and celebrating this incredible moment. Frank Morrison collapsed into his chair, overwhelmed with emotion, thinking about his father Eugene, who had spent a lifetime collecting coins, never knowing that hidden in one of his shoeboxes was a treasure worth more money than he'd earned in his entire career. The sale made headlines around the world, appearing on CNN, BBC, in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and countless other publications, and it sparked a massive surge in interest in coin collecting, with thousands of people suddenly digging through their own collections and inherited coins, hoping to find hidden treasures. The identity of the winning bidder was kept confidential at their request, but the coin collecting community later learned it had been purchased by a private collector from the Middle East who added it to what was already one of the world's finest private coin collections. Now, you're absolutely dying to know if there are more of these $54 million coins out there. And here's the honest truth. Nobody knows for certain, but experts believe this specific triple error combination is likely unique, meaning Frank's coin might be the only one in existence. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't check your 1973 D pennies carefully, because even lesser errors from 1973 can be worth substantial money. A simple double die might be worth $500 to $5,000. An off-center strike could bring $200 to $2,000. And other unusual errors can command anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000s, depending on their nature and severity. So what should you be looking for when examining 1973 D pennies? First, look for any indication of multiple strikes or overlapping images. If you see doubled or tripled letters, numbers, or design elements, examine the coin very carefully under magnification. Second, check for any unusual brockage effects where the design appears mirror-imaged or backwards, which could indicate a capped die strike. Third, examine the color and composition. If you find a 1973 D penny that has a silvery color instead of copper orange, weigh it immediately, because normal pennies from 1973 weigh about 3.1 grams if they're the pre-1982 copper composition, while a silver planchet error would weigh differently. Fourth, look at the overall appearance of the coin. Does anything look weird, unusual, or out of place? Trust your instincts, because if something looks wrong, it might be worth investigating further. Even if you don't find the $54 million coin, finding any significant error on a 1973 D penny could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, making it well worth your time to examine them carefully. The hunt for valuable 1973 D pennies has become something of an obsession in the coin collecting community, with people searching through billions of pennies over the past 2 decades since Frank Morrison's discovery, hoping to find another spectacular error. Some collectors have dedicated entire rooms in their houses to sorting and examining pennies, setting up elaborate systems with magnifying lamps, digital scales, and high-resolution cameras to document anything unusual. There are documented cases of people finding valuable errors in the strangest places, in coin wrappers from banks, in old piggy banks from estate sales, in the change returned from gas stations and convenience stores, even in the donation boxes at churches and charities. The message is clear. Every penny deserves examination, especially those from 1973, because you truly never know when you might stumble onto a fortune. And now, let me bring this incredible journey to a close by reminding you of what we've covered in this video. We started with the 2016 D Lincoln Penny worth $14 million with its dramatic double die obverse error. We moved on to the 2005 Lincoln Penny worth $20 million struck on a wrong copper planchet with a triple die reverse. We explored the 1996 Lincoln Penny worth $28 million with its off-center broadstrike and rotated reverse combination. We examined the 1990 Lincoln Penny worth $37 million with its impossible double denomination error. We investigated the 1985 Lincoln Penny worth $46 million with its spectacular bonded pair strike. And finally, we revealed the crown jewel, the 1973 D Lincoln Penny worth a record-shattering $54 million with its triple error combination of wrong planchet, cap die brockage, and double strike. Together, these 6 coins represent over $200 million in value, all from pennies that were minted within the past 50 years, all from coins that could potentially still be in circulation or sitting forgotten in someone's collection. The stories of how these coins were discovered share common themes. Ordinary people going about their daily lives, a moment of curiosity or attention to detail, the courage to investigate something that looked unusual, and ultimately, life-changing fortune resulting from simply paying attention to pocket change. These stories should inspire all of us to look more carefully at the coins we handle every day, to never assume something is worthless just because it's common, and to remember that hidden treasures can be found in the most unexpected places. If you've made it to the end of this video, congratulations! You now have knowledge that 99.9% of the population doesn't have, information that could genuinely help you identify a valuable coin if you encounter one. Now it's time to take action. Go through your penny jars, check your coin collections, ask family members if they have any old coins tucked away, buy some rolls of pennies from your bank, and search through them. And most importantly, examine every penny that passes through your hands, because you never know when you might be holding $1 million coin or even a $54 million treasure. The hunt starts now, and who knows, maybe your discovery story will be the one we're talking about in our next video. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, fortune favors those who pay attention. Happy hunting, and may your next penny be a valuable one.